I'm Belinda Goodrich.
And I'm Brandie Beane. Welcome to
See How I Did That? This is your opportunity to get engaged and inspired by our guests who have overcome obstacles to achieve success.
Real women,
Real talk,
and real inspiration. Your transformation starts now.
I'm Belinda Goodrich.
And I'm Brandie Beane.
And this is See How I Did That? Today's interview was with a very special guest. It was with the one and only.
Blake Shelton.
Yeah, Blake Shelton.
There we go.
Yep.
Got it.
Yep. Brandie Beane, you were on the hot seat for this interview. How did it feel?
It was a little nerve-wracking, to be honest. I didn't know what you were going to ask.
So it's pretty crazy. When we went into this interview, we didn't rehearse or practice, so we actually didn't know what the questions were going to be, and I just let it kind of go where it went.
Made me cry.
I did. And, you know, I'm proud of that fact. So I think this is a great interview, and I think young and old alike can certainly pull from that, and really it helped us understand Brandie's journey. And I think there's so much in there that we don't talk about as far as some things around domestic violence and around some overcoming challenges and mental health and stuff. So this is a great interview. And
did you learn something from it?
Oh, I did.
Did you learn something that you didn't know about me?
I know everything about you. I'm your mother. I'm your mother. I think I learned everything. I don't know. I'll have to listen to the interview again. So ladies and gentlemen, here is my interview with Brandie Beane. Today's episode of See How I Did That is going to be fun, interesting, and probably a little scary for me because I, Belinda Goodrich, am interviewing my co-host, who also happens to be my business partner and my daughter, Brandie Beane.
I like how you put daughter last.
I did. You know, I want to make sure there's no like preferential treatment happening there or anything like that.
I feel like that should be your number one because I'm the number one daughter. See how I did that?
I see how you did that. All right, so Brandie, let's start off. Tell us a little bit about you and just who you are as a person.
So as a person, I would say I'm the helper. If I were to classify myself as somebody, I like to help people, and in return, I get almost instant gratification when I help somebody, but then at the same time, it has caused some hardships in my life because I'm constantly wanting to help people, and I find people to help. I seek them out. But I also help people like my grandparents.
You have a very sensitive spirit.
I'm very sensitive.
Which is funny because you're not if people would look at you externally and even just looking at your history, you're tough.
I'm a very tough person.
So that's an interesting dichotomy there of being the very sensitive person, but yet also being the very tough person.
So I think that's me in a nutshell, personality wise, but I
talk to us about 9/11 and the impact that had on you and some choices that you made as a result of 9/11. Start off by how old you were when that happened.
I was in 6th grade when that happened. And I remember that day very clearly. We lived in a tri-level house in Peoria at the time. And I was in the upstairs bedroom. And so I remember coming down the stairs, and we had this small little television in our kitchen right in the corner that like hung underneath the cabinet. And I remember my mom standing there. You standing there?
I'm your mom. That was me.
Yeah. I remember you standing there watching it, and I got down there and I watched right as that second plane hit that tower. And I was like, wow, like that was crazy, and it like started to become real of what just happened. But again, I'm in 6th grade, so to say I fully understood it, I won't say that because I don't think I did. And then we went to school, and I remember drawing like on the dates of every paper, I would draw a flag, and I did that all the way through school. Any September 11th, I would always draw a flag, and I remember just thinking like, wow, like how can I help? And I felt so helpless. Back to being a helper. I felt so helpless of I can't do anything for my country right now because I'm in 6th grade. What am I gonna do? Like, so it hurt because I wanted to help. And so fast forward to my junior year, I guess it was the end of my junior year. You had asked me what I want to do with my life, and to be honest, I didn't know. I knew that I was a good worker. I knew I didn't necessarily like school. So I told you, I was like, I'm just going to join the military. And it was kind of a thing that I had thought about, but it wasn't something that I was very serious about until you asked me. And it was almost like all those feelings from sitting in my 6th grade class rushed back to me, like, oh my gosh, like this is how I can help. And this can be my contribution to help 9/11, even though I couldn't do anything at the time. Okay. Going forward, I ended up enlisting into the Navy, became a CB, which is a construction worker in the Navy. So we'd go over, build bases, started in Afghanistan, which really solidified, like, okay, like I'm doing this and I'm helping, even though like obviously what I did was very minute in the big scale of things, but it was something. Right. And I was able to do that. And so again, that kind of just goes back to being a helper. Right. Like I just want to, whatever I can do, I don't care if it's, okay, I'm going to go and push papers, like whatever I can do, I'm going to do because I'm helping my country.
Right. So you joined the military, you served a tour overseas, you actually served in multiple countries, Guam and Bahrain and Afghanistan. What was the big, I would say, you came out of that, you did a little bit of a stint in corporate, and now you're working on building your speaking business. Mm-hmm. What do you think was the best lesson, the best skill that you took out of being in the military, that if someone was out there listening that had maybe considered going in the military, what do you think was the big thing you took away that you can apply to civilian business?
Probably that it doesn't matter what you're going through, there's still a job to get done. So nice. Being in the military, obviously we get called, we work when they tell us to work, you go to the bathroom when they tell you to go to the bathroom. Like it's very structured and disciplined. And so it was almost a culture shock to me. And I'm sure if you're listening, then you've been in the service and came out. It was almost a culture shock when I joined corporate, because they didn't tell me what to do all the time.
Right.
And so being in the Navy, like I knew exactly where I needed to be every minute of damn near every day. And when you go to corporate, you have more freedom. It's still strict, but you have more freedom. And so that was really hard for me to say, oh my gosh, like you're not going to tell me like
right.
that I can go to the bathroom. And I remember my first corporate job, like I would ask them like, hey, can I go use the restroom real quick? And they're like, you don't have to ask, just go use the restroom. And but that's what drilled into me from 18 years old. And so that was probably my biggest takeaway is, it doesn't matter. Like, for instance, we had a friend recently lose their mom and they were serving overseas. They came home literally for the funeral, and guess what? They got back on a plane to go over there. So not that I don't want to make the military sound not sympathetic, because there's some sympathy to it because we're all human. But there's a bigger job,
human lives are on the line.
Correct. So. And so it forces you as a human to, I don't want to say harden your feelings, but to be like, okay, I'm going to just internalize this. And I don't necessarily want to get on a tangent, but I think that's part of the reason why we have so many suicides and everything among military, because you are almost forced to push down all of these things that are happening to you, no matter how insignificant they may seem. The more that you push down, it stacks up, and eventually it's gonna overfill. And I love the military. I would go back in an absolute heartbeat, but I will say that there are some things that need to be looked at because of that. Like, I mean, you can't, the
suicide rate,
you can only push down so much. Yeah. And I'll get a little personal here. Earlier this year, I went through a very hard time. I'm gonna try not to. I was doing that. I was pushing everything.
Yeah.
So earlier this year, we dealt with loss. So we lost my papa and my Mimi, and that was really hard, even though it was expected. My grandmother wasn't as expected, and I think that hit me really hard that I didn't handle it. But, and I will go back to the military, we're taught to just keep pushing. It's kind of like down. Here's the best analogy I can use. Have you gone to a place where you build your own like stir fry?
Yeah, like the Mongolian barbecue.
Yes, and you take the paper and you push everything down, all the meat, the freeze-dried meat or whatever, and you just push it down. That's what it feels like. And so, and we were having issues. I was having issues of, oh my gosh, like, what am I doing with my life? Like, here I am, a single mom, like, living literally paycheck to paycheck. I don't know what I'm doing. I didn't know what I wanted to do for work. And it was literally, I just kept pushing it down. And I finally, it just overcame.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to, and I'm going to give a shout out to the VA right now, because I think they have a very bad name. So this happened. I had my mental breakdown on a Friday night. Saturday, it just kind of spewed into it, but I had my child that I have to raise. And so put a smile on my face, acted like everything was fine. I had scheduled an appointment with the VA for my foot, and it was my first time going to a primary care doctor with the VA because I've heard negative things, so I've been pushing it off. And I go there, and I will tell you that God intervened. And they said, hey, this is your first appointment. I said, yes. And they're like, okay, you need to see mental health. And like, I am like, clearly, I feel like I put a very good smile on my face, but internally, like, I was a hot mess. And I said, no, I'm good. I don't need to see mental health. Like, I didn't want to be stigmatized as, you know, one of those military people that cries wolf and whatever you want to call them. And so I'm like, no, I'm good. And this sweet lady, she's like, I'm sorry, Miss Beane, but you don't have a choice. Like, you have to go and just talk to them. And they just want to tell you about their program. And then you can see your doctor. And I said, okay, like, if I have to. And so I go, and this poor guy, I feel really bad because I think he was an intern. So sweet. But I don't even know what question he asked me. He asked me a question, and literally I unleashed on this man for like an hour and a half. And he's like, so I think that you would benefit from our program, our 8-week program. And I said, okay. Like, and I couldn't argue. And so they took care of me and got me back. And now those feelings still will creep in because we all have monsters that will creep in, but I know where to go.
So what is your advice? I mean, obviously we know with the VA, it's a hot button, and we know there's so many soldiers and sailors that are out there and that do struggle. And I agree, you know, we can see a root cause. Not only is it the things that you may have seen, witnessed, experienced, but also the way you're taught to deal with stuff. People that are not in the military may have come from a family where you're not allowed to show emotion. Yep. So, I mean, so it's not just military. Military, I think it's exacerbated significantly.
Well, you have way more people.
You have way more people. And so we know this, and we know, you know, unfortunately the suicide rates and everything, but we also have just a suicide plague within our country as well. What would be your advice to someone that's out there, one of our listeners that, you know what, they've same thing, they're juggling, right? Yeah. Maybe paycheck to paycheck, maybe a single parent, maybe making a change, maybe in an unhealthy relationship about that. Because you said, I don't want to be stigmatized.
I did not want to be stigmatized. And I didn't want to tell anybody. So
what would be your advice to somebody that is in that same situation now after you've come through this?
I don't know if I would have ever actually committed suicide. Like, I don't think I would let my body, like, actually do that. However, that night I was damn near close. So my thing is find somebody to talk to, who you're talking to.
Right. That's a good point.
And so it took me going to a complete stranger to open up and feel comfortable opening up. And I don't know if I'll ever see him. Obviously, if I get back there, I'll go see him. But like, it took me to go to that. So find somebody, even if you don't know them, go to the doctors, go to somebody and just say, I need to talk. And you can, even if you're like, I would never commit suicide, I never do that. I am a very strong mental person. And for me to get down there is just complete slap in my face. Yeah. Because I was always like, I don't know why people commit suicide. That doesn't make sense. It didn't make sense to me because I never lived it. But when you get to a point where your bucket is completely full.
You're saying, you know, don't just, yes, ask for help, but don't just ask for help from the people around you that you know and trust, but actually find a professional resource.
Yes.
So I think as part of this podcast, we'll go ahead and we're going to post some numbers and some resources and some links for everyone too. Yeah. So if you do feel like you need to talk and are having some issues, definitely we're going to post some links and give some resources out there.
Yeah, it's definitely an epidemic right now.
Yeah, and professional help is out there. And let me tell you, the world needs you.
And you feel so much better.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, like when I came out of there, I mean, eyes puffy, I had like zero makeup on. I didn't care. I was like, oh my gosh, that weight that just lifted off of my shoulders by spewing everything that I had just pushed down. Amazing. Like nothing a beer could ever do.
Beer, drugs, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's switch gears a little bit.
Yes, please.
You mentioned that but thank you for that transparency, because again, we need to have these conversations. We need to have these conversations. And we're not afraid of it here on See How I Did That. And the more we can talk about it and destigmatize it, the better, because again, I always say the world needs your story, but the world needs you even more than it needs your story.
Yep.
And we all are here and are serving a purpose, even if sometimes we lose what that is.
We will get back to our interview shortly after this word from our sponsor, Goodrich Publishing. At Goodrich Publishing, we believe everyone has a story that needs to be told. Have you considered writing your book? We're here to help you get that book in your hands in the most economic way possible. Find us on the web at goodrichpublishing.com. And now, back to our interview.
You are a single mom.
I am. Yes.
And you were raised by a single mom.
I was.
So let's talk a little bit about what that taught you being raised by a single mom, and also, kind of the downsides as well. And so how does that then translate? We talk a lot about breaking the cycle, right? My big fear was I was a teenage mom, and the probability that if I had a daughter, the probability that I would have a child that has a child was very, very high. There's a cycle there. So talk a little bit about that. And because I know that a lot of our listeners are in that situation, whether it's they've chosen to be, which a lot of women do nowadays. And really blame you there. Or they are forced to be, and maybe it's through divorce, or maybe it's through death, or they got out of an abusive relationship. So share that.
I got out of the military from a very bad abusive relationship that, even I moved up to Richmond, Virginia. He even followed me up there trying to, whatever his mission was. But I finally got him out of my life, and I started playing hockey, which I was feeling good. After being in a shitty relationship for 3.5 years, I finally felt like an adult, and like I was living the life that I wanted to. I had my own place. I had a decent job. And then I wanted to have fun. I felt like I got married when I was young, and I kind of felt like I missed the party, go out and have fun stage. Mm-hmm. So I ended up meeting a guy, and this goes back to me being a helper. He, had a couple of DUIs, didn't drive. He still lived at home with mom. I know you guys are all thinking like, girl, what are you doing? Trust me, I know. He was so sweet, and he treated me nice, which was something that I was craving because my previous relationship was so bad.
Right.
And so he ended up moving in with me. Didn't pay anything. I mean, he had a job, and moved in with me. I ended up getting pregnant, and literally I found out Halloween night, what am I going to do? And it's something that I felt guilty about, because I'm like, this should be such a happy moment. And I love kids. And I wanted a kid, but at the same time, I didn't want it with him, and I knew that. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what did I just do? Because now I'm like stuck with this guy because I'm about to have his child. So talk about isolation and feeling so alone. I had no family there. My best friend lived 2 hours away. So I was like, oh my gosh, like I can't, there's no way I could do this for 9 months. Like there's absolutely no way. I really want to move back to Arizona. And it took a lot of convincing. Finally, he's like, okay, we can do it. So that day I went and put my 2 weeks in, started looking for jobs, ended up getting a job at USAA. So he decided to stay in Virginia to find a job and get his license back, because he was getting it back in March. So I'm like, okay, you find a job, get your license back. We're in a better state than we are right now. And on the way out to Arizona, we were at our last stop. It was me, my mom, my dog, and then obviously I'm pregnant. And I had a U-Haul trailer hooked to my truck, and we're in Albuquerque, and we stopped there for the night and woke up in the morning. I go take my dog out to go to the bathroom, and I look at my truck and I'm like, man, something seems missing. Well, my trailer was gone. So they had completely stolen literally everything, that all my military stuff, everything that I've owned, minus the pajamas I slept in, because I didn't even bring clothes up to change into. So I literally, like, no bra, nothing. And which girls can appreciate how serious it is. And so I called him and I said, hey, like, I have no money. You owe me money for the phone bill. Are you, like, can you help me? Like, I talk about feeling like,
talk about having literally everything is taken in.
No, and I'm broke.
You know, and to, like, think about that. If, you know, for our listeners, picture, you know, look around your house right now. If you packaged every single thing up in your house, every single belonging you have, every mug, every plate, every fork, every piece of clothes, picture, memorabilia, everything, and you just said, okay,
see you later,
bye, gone.
Yeah.
So that's literally where you were at.
Literally where I was at. I literally had nothing. And so I call the one person that you would think would be like, oh my gosh, like, this is the mother of my child. I'm going to do whatever I can to help her, because again, if roles were reversed, I'm a helper. So I would have done literally anything. I would have sold anything to make sure he had money. And he's like, oh, I don't have it. Like, so easy. And so you can just guess on how the next few months went. And it ended up, I told him it wasn't worth the stress, but I left it open for him to come out and live out here and be a part of Cadence's life, because growing up without a dad, I know how that can impact you. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want that. And I want him a part of her life, regardless if we're together or not. So he chose not to, and that's fine. That's his decision. And honestly, at first I was very upset about it, but then relieved. And then I felt guilty for being relieved.
Right. So I think that is a big part of being a single parent. Yeah. Right? There's that kind of mix of, it's kind of nice I get to have you all to myself.
Yes, like now I
feel guilty that I want to have you all to myself.
Exactly. Like, I raised Cadence exactly how I want to. I don't have to check with anybody. I don't have to ask permission to take her to Ireland. Like it's wonderful. And it's like, honestly, like, I'm very blessed for that. But at the same time, I know that there is something that a father will bring to a relationship. Certainly. And I'm not, like, naive to that, because I know as a child, like, there's always gonna be something that you're going to be like, wow, like, all these people have two parents and I only have one. And so there's always that. So she is 3 going on 16, and
she's
now
a teenager.
Now she's asking a lot of questions, which it's like, you're 3, like, you won't understand this because this is a very adult, complicated stuff. But she asks, like, where's my dad? Where's my dad? Every guy she sees is not my dad. And it, like,
are you my mother?
Yeah, it breaks my heart. But then at the same time, the other day I picked her up from school and she's like, Mom, I don't have a dad. I just have a cool mom. And I said, that's right. And because that's what I tell her. I said, some kids have 2 moms. Some kids have 2 dads. Some kids have a mom and a dad. Some kids only have a dad. Some kids only have a mom. And that's okay, because that's the way that God wanted it to be. And I believe that this, again, is all part of the plan. Okay. And so I now have a very good tribe here who is more mature. And they have a lot. So I am still able to have me time and not feel bad because, you know, my aunt's watching Cadence, or my mom's watching Cadence, or her rental family's watching her, like, and that they're a close family, by the way. Let me just say that I don't actually rent my kid out. But, you know, so that would be the positive, is that, like, we have figured out life. And I think if you are a single mom, or going to be a single mom, and I'm going to just speak to moms right now, because dads, I don't know exactly what you have to go through. I do hate that there's no changing tables in men's restrooms.
Yeah,
by the way, so let me just put that on record.
Well, again, because it's making it, again, the assumption that it's only women that change kids' diapers.
Correct. In some relationships that may be true, but can we get rid of that?
Can we as a society acknowledge that maybe men are capable of changing a fucking diaper once in a while?
Right.
Just thinking.
So that's the positive, is that we have figured out life. And if you are going to be a single mom, or are a single mom, figure your life and
get your tribe. I mean, really get your tribe.
Not only that, find something that you can do for you. So my thing is sports. On Sundays is my sports day. I play soccer, hockey, and softball. That is my day. I don't feel bad for not spending it with my child, because I need that for me.
Yeah.
And as much as it sucks every week trying to find a babysitter, like I don't care. I will do it because I know that that's important. And if you don't have something that is just for you and not for you and your child, find something. Whether it's I'm going to go to a movie, I'm going to go eat lunch by myself. Do something for you, because if not, you have completely submerged yourself into motherhood, and I don't believe that's what we're made for.
No,
I believe that
I think
you
we're healthier. Yeah,
Yeah,
you've got
you have to have that balance, and I think we are raising children to become successful adults.
That's our one goal, by the way. That's my theory is we have one job as parents, and that's to raise them to be successful. And
if they see that
adults.
You are not doing stuff and doing self-care for you, they're not going to do that for themselves because they're not learning.
They're not going to be healthy.
So those are my positives. My negative, and I'll talk about the trend of not breaking the cycle, because it has gotten thrown in my face a few times. Well, you're a single mom because you have a single mom. And that was something, and I know he said that because he was trying to hurt me, and I understand that. But there are times that I think about that, like, okay, I was raised by a very strong, powerful woman who didn't put up with shit and was able to raise 3 kids, and we are all, in my opinion, great adults. And so I look at how she did that, and as a child, like, I knew that my mom was going to do everything she could to make sure that we were fed, had a roof over our head, made sure that we cleaned. So we learned how to clean. Like, there's so many things that she taught us that even though it was like, wow, that's really harsh, I could figure out why she was doing it. I won't talk about the chore chart. Looking at being a single mom negatively, I look at it as an opportunity. And I look at it as, hey, I can do it because my mom did it. And if I can be half the woman that she was, I'm good. Cadence will be fine. Like, if you ever was like, hey, I want to meet him, cool, I will call him up and you can meet him. Like, and you were like that with us. Like hey, this is the situation. This is why he's not with your life. If you want to meet him, like, we can figure it out. And it was always that thing of, okay, I know in the back of my mind, I know I can go and meet him if I want to, but it was never a thing that I actually wanted to. So it worked out.
So one thing I would say is, looking back, and so I'll address on the mom thing because now I can look back and now not only looking at what I did, but then looking at what you're doing. So for all the moms out there, I think I will sit here and I could give you a list of like, I would be like the UPS ad where she goes on and on, we ship and we pack. Like, I could go on and on about all the mistakes I made and every single thing that I regret. And yet when we get together and we talk about, especially when I first moved to Arizona with the girls, I think the one consistent memory that I have and the one consistent thing we would do is, because I had no money. We were freaking broke. And we would drive across Arizona. We'd get in the car. We'd drive literally across Phoenix. We'd go from the southeast corner to the northwest corner singing Melissa Etheridge. Yeah. And we'd go to the mall. I couldn't afford anything. So it's not like we could go shopping at the mall. We walked around and the only thing you guys got to buy
was a candy necklace.
That was we went to the candy shop. We got a candy necklace. We walked around the mall. We went to dinner somewhere. We had dinner somewhere, usually McDonald's or something cheap. And then we would drive back singing. Yep. And so to the moms that are out there that are struggling, especially as we're, this is going to air after holiday seasons. But as you think about the holiday, think about birthdays, you know what kids are going to take away is not, oh, I got this great toy or I got this great thing. It was that time. And I think when you take the time for yourself to be healthy, which at the time I didn't know to do that. And I'm so glad you do that. Like, take the time for yourself to be healthy. Then when you are with your children, that time is so much richer.
Yes.
And create the memories. So don't beat yourself. If you're out there and you're struggling with money and thinking, oh, I got to get in again, where everybody's competitive on social media of who's going to have the biggest Christmas and who got the newest toy. Honestly, it's like the candy necklace syndrome. Like, drive with your kids, sing songs, be silly, ask them about their day. And I feel so blessed that it was way before cell phones. Yeah. So like, I was never tempted to not look at my kids and talk to them. That's all there was to do.
It's definitely hard.
And nowadays it's a lot harder. And, for all of us, so Grammy included. So, Brandie, you know this. You're my hero. I mean, we barely scratched the surface of who you are and your journey in life, because it has been a journey since before you were born, as you know. And so that's why we are so excited that Brandie is joining the Writers Academy that we're doing with Goodrich Publishing, and Brandie is working on her book.
I am. So I'm excited.
You definitely have a story that needs to be shared, and I think all of our listeners have stories that need to be shared. So hats off to Goodrich Publishing for sponsoring this episode. Brought up so many good points that are so relevant to today, and I encourage our listeners to, again, surround yourself with positivity, but also being realistic. And I think that's part of our goal with this podcast is we wanted to show people that you're not alone.
And if you, regardless if you are women in business, whatever you're doing, stay-at-home mom, if you feel like this has helped you in any way, please share it to somebody else that could benefit from it.
We appreciate your honesty and transparency, Brandie. I know those things are hard to talk about.
We want to thank you for joining us for this episode of See How I Did That? And we want to thank our sponsor, Goodrich Publishing. For more on our sponsor, Goodrich Publishing, you can find them at goodrichpublishing.com. Thank you, and we'll see you next week for our next episode of See How I Did That?